Something that's really fascinated me since moving to the US is really understanding the nuts and bolts of what it costs to live with type 1 diabetes in this country. And it's something that varies from country to state to profession and insurance coverage, all of that. So it's very, very difficult to put a true universal number on it. And that's not what I'm trying to do here. But I do know that hardly anybody really talks about what they pay for the things that they need to keep them alive. And it's something that I thought would make an interesting video and something that I wanted to be really transparent with you guys about, because I don't think it's talked about enough from a very practical, pragmatic level. In this video, I am going to go through the cost of all my prescriptions and estimates of things like blood draws, doctor's appointments, etc., to give you a true grasp and insight into what it costs for me to live in this country with this condition. The way I get my prescriptions is I get them in 3-month supplies. So my copay, my insurance, all of that is paid in virtually 3-month chunks. So how I'm going to talk about the figures is every 3 months, this is what it costs. And then at the end, I will break that down to a monthly figure and a yearly figure. First up, insurance. It's different for everybody. For me, every 3 months, I pay $375 for my insurance, which is through my job. And if I don't make enough money through my job, I do not have insurance. So not only do I need to pay that $375, but I need to make a minimum of $26,500 through my job in order to qualify for that. Next up, there's insulin, the big one. For me, I pay a copay of $125 every 3 months. That is the absolute ceiling that the copay I can pay on my pharmaceuticals is. So I pay full whack on what that copay is on insulin because it's through the roof otherwise, and they have to cap me at that $125. So every 3 months for my insulin, it's $125. Next up, my Dexcom G6 sensors and my Dexcom G6 transmitter. For those of you who don't know, the Dexcom G6 is a continuous glucose monitor. Again, we have the famous $125. That is what I pay for the sensors, again, because they can't charge me more than that. So I'm up at that ceiling of $125 for the sensors, and for that transmitter that lasts every 3 months, I pay $55 copay on that. Next up, there's my insulin pump. I am on the Omnipod 5 at present, and that costs, oh, you guessed it, $125 for a 3-month supply. Again, it hits that ceiling. I remember the first time I actually collected my Omnipod 5 prescription. I was so shocked at what the retail price was. I took a picture and sent it to my husband, David. The retail price, as you can see in this photo, is $2,015.99. That's for a 3-month supply. Now again, I paid $125, but I thought it was funny to add that for comic value. Test strips, those run $25 a bottle for $50. So I've counted this as 1 per month, so a 3-month supply of test strips, $75. That totally depends on how many times I'm finger sticking, and it shouldn't have to be that regular with the CGM using the Dexcom G6, and it normally isn't, to be fair, but I think that's a pretty accurate estimate. Next up is low treatments. This is a little bit hard to quantify because it can be mixed in with the food you eat, things you buy out and about, a candy bar that you've had to buy, a pop, a juice, whatever. But I've estimated this at $60 for every 3 months. And that really is based on my purchase on Amazon of glucose tablets and the average that I use of glucose tablets every 3 months. Alcohol swabs. We're injecting ourselves, so we need to disinfect the area first. $5 every 3 months. For doctor's appointments is a little bit harder to quantify because that can be variable, but I've gone ahead and split these up into 4 parts: endocrinology, blood draws, optometry appointments, and podiatry appointments. The optometrist and podiatry I added in because it's incredibly important and inextricably linked to diabetes health that we look after our eyes and our feet. So those I felt were very fair to include into that diabetes sphere of care. And these figures coming at you next are yearly. So on average, yearly, I spend $1,000 towards endocrinology appointments. I spend $250 towards lab work. I spend $200 towards optometry appointments and eye care, and $200 towards podiatry appointments and care for the feet. There are a few things here that I've wanted to add, but I haven't, and that is mental health and my cost of thyroid medication. So mental health has been an ongoing struggle for me personally, and I know for a lot of other type 1 diabetics, or diabetics in general, how about just human beings in general, which is why I haven't added it to this sphere. But no doubt there's a cost for mental health prescriptions that you might be on. And then as well, when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I was diagnosed with an underactive thyroid. So I have to take thyroid medication for the rest of my life since that diagnosis date. So it's difficult. Do you include that? Do you not? Thyroid medication is $20 every 3 months. So that's kind of nominal in the grand scheme of things, though I don't believe that is not a figure that's important. But in order to really keep this pure, I left that out. I left mental health stuff out. Also things like the cost of glasses. Also things like the cost of shoes. The amount of shoes that I have bought as a type 1 diabetic, and then I go, after 3 wears or 4 wears, I can't wear these because they're making my feet go numb or whatever. And I thought they were going to be fine, but there we go. Another pair of shoes out the window. It's tough. I can't really fairly include that in these costs, but I do feel it's necessary to add them in as a piece of the puzzle because it just goes to show how pervasive type 1 diabetes is and how pervasive it can be on your wallet and your finances. So here we go. Let's do it. Let's add it up. Every 3 months. Insurance, $375, insulin, $125, Omnipod 5 pods, $125, Dexcom G6 sensor, $125, Dexcom G6 transmitter, $55, alcohol swabs, $5, glucose tablets, aka low treatments, $60, test strips, $75. That total every 3 months comes to $945 divided by 3 equals $315. So for the prescriptions or things of that nature, $315 per month. So let's break down the doctor's appointments, and this is per year, mind you. Endocrinologist, $1,000. Blood draws, $250. Optometrist, $200. Podiatrist, $200. That brings us to a total of $1,650 per year for the doctor's appointment side of things, divided by 12 months in a year, $137.50 per month. So between $315 per month for the pharmaceutical side of things and $137.50 for the doctor's side of things, that brings us to a monthly total of $452.50. So take that $452.50 times 12, that brings us to a total of $5,430 to take care of this diabetic here. That is the grand total. Now, I would not feel comfortable having just that amount of money because what if I needed a surgery? What if I needed something extraordinary above and beyond that because of any number of issues? So I would go ahead and round that $5,430 figure up to $7,000 to give me an approximate $1,500 cushion just in case of emergencies. So those are my personal figures. Absolute transparency, that is what I pay on average per year to live with my type 1 diabetes. Now, something that is really important to mention is I am a type 1 diabetic that has access to the best of the best of the best, in my opinion. I don't want for something else. I have the CGM I want. I have the CGM period, which is a huge advantage. I have an insulin pump, another humongous advantage. And I have insurance, which is like, just, it's mind-blowing, but that's an advantage. So I do want to say that I am not blind to the fact that I'm presenting you with figures that are for a pretty fantastic standard of care. So I probably pay more because I have the best of the best of the best available to me. And I don't want to not acknowledge that. I really want to acknowledge that, especially for people that don't have access to that technology. But as well, this is a big issue in my mind because with that statement, it means if you are not able to cover the cost financially, you deserve less excellent treatment. You all know how I feel about that. If you guys want to add your breakdowns into the picture, please feel free to let me know them down below. Comment them. Let's get a conversation going. As always, it is so important that more voices be heard in this space. We can talk about how expensive it is and how burdensome it is on people's finances to live with a chronic condition. But when you really break it down, I think it's incredibly powerful because it shows you exactly where those numbers are coming from and how they're adding up and how they're broken down and how people aren't just throwing out those numbers just to be dramatic or clickbaity. No, it's real. This is what comes out of my pocket. And I am sure a lot of people pay a lot more. So let me know in the comments down below. I wish you guys a wonderful day wherever you are in this world. I always say I wish you great blood sugar, straight CGM lines, and yes, I do wish you all of that. But most of all, I hope that you have exactly what you need to care for your type 1 diabetes. And I am certain that a lot of people that I'm speaking to right now do not have that. And this is part of why I'm making this video. And I want to say, I see you. This is not a video of me saying, hey, I've got all this stuff, this is what it costs, I can afford it. No, this is just to explain the situation and put more practical figures to it, and hopefully we can get a conversation going and this can drive things forward to make it really clear how expensive it is to live with this condition and how this is not something that a lot of people can afford. So what are they doing? How are people supposed to look after themselves? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.